Good evening, and thank you for joining our City of Richland ADA Transition Plan Virtual Open House. I'm joined this evening by the primary author of our plan is Carlo D'Alessandro. He's the city's Transportation and Development Manager, and Sabrina Melendrez is our Administrative Assistant in Public Works who is running the meeting. Like I said, I'm the Public Works Director here at the city, and we've prepared this plan and are hoping to get public input in the plan from as many people as we can generate interest in. There's a few ways you can participate, and we'll go through those as we go through the meeting. So I'm gonna, in a second here, I'm gonna share my screen, and we'll walk through an outline that will explain both the content of the plan and how we're hoping to engage you in the process. So stand by for a second while I share my screen. There we go. So this is our title page. Here's where we are this evening. I'll just point out that the title of the plan is a transition plan for the public rights of way. And there are other facilities that the city owns for which ADA compliance is important. Those other facilities will be addressed on a different forum and in a different time. So for tonight, we're just focused on the public rights of way. So our approach this evening has been unfortunately shaped by the pandemic. Normally, we at the city have a very robust public engagement process. We like to meet our residents. We like to engage them in person, in any kind of forums we can. Everybody is having to do business differently in this pandemic. And so unfortunately, our ability to interact directly on this plan is also impacted by the pandemic, and we're doing this in a virtual format. Tonight, this is just an audio visual presentation. This presentation will be supplemented with captions and posted on the city's website for access for people with different abilities to access. So the purpose of our meeting tonight is to introduce the public engagement process we've designed for this plan. And as we go through it, we'll explain that there are multiple ways to interact with the city about the plan. And as I've mentioned, the meeting that we're holding this evening is only one of those pathways and is very limited. As we go through this presentation, we'll be sharing the content of the draft plan that Carlo and others have contributed to for our public rights of way. We'll provide some pathways for your input, and we're pointing toward formal adoption of the plan by the City Council. So here's a little bit of context to why we're here. This evening, there's a federal law called the Americans with Disabilities Act, and that is codified in federal regulations. There have been engineering standards developed as to how to comply with those regulations. And you can see a timeline in the graphics on this slide that as of 2010, there was some direct guidance on how to design for accessible. It's noteworthy that those standards were published about 20 years after the passage of the law. And so there's been a lot of development in the process over the time about how to activate that legislation. The bottom line for us, and the reason that we're here, is that for public agencies with more than 50 employees, we're required to have a plan about how to take facilities, most of which that were built before these standards were developed, and make them accessible or remediate the deficiencies in those facilities. I want to explain some of what the city has been doing for quite some time leading up to this plan document. So we've had ongoing programs for about the last 10 years to remediate and change our built environment to improve accessibility. That involves a lot of work on sidewalk access ramps, traffic signal components and accessibility, pedestrian street crossing, safety improvements, and then responding to citizen requests for specific improvements that involve accessibility. Another part of our ongoing program is that whenever we make a street improvement project, and there have been many, all of those projects include accessibility improvements to conform with standards. So this is something we've been doing leading up to this plan, and has helped us make some headway or progress against the goals of the plan. Now what we're doing with the plan document is seeking public comment for the rest of the work. So our plan document is structured according to guidance from the federal government about how to generate one of these plans, and it includes four key elements. First one is an inventory or a self-evaluation. That has taken us actually several years to assemble that data set. You can imagine that the city has a large inventory of sidewalks and traffic signals and features, and there's some very specific criteria that are applied to evaluating those for compliance or conformance with standards. So we've got a really large body of work to generate a comprehensive inventory of our facilities. Then we assemble the methods to be used to remediate the deficiencies. We identify a schedule and means of addressing those deficiencies. And then a really key component of the plan is to identify the point of contact in the city for people who don't think we're doing it well enough, or have specific needs that haven't been addressed yet. So at this point in time, we've focused our efforts on a few features, and so the barriers to accessibility within the public right-of-way are in these categories listed below. And so curb ramps or sidewalk access ramps at intersections and at marked crossings, that is one category of improvements. Those have been inventoried, and there's a plan. There's a plan for addressing those. Traffic signals include pedestrian crossing features, and we've inventoried those and identified deficiencies. The good news of this component of the system is that we actually have a funded project to update and address all those deficiencies in the works now that will be completed in calendar year 2022. So it's not really an action item in our current plan document, as those signals will be compliant as of early next year. Then another big category of infrastructure are all the sidewalks in the city. And at present, our inventory of the deficiencies of those sidewalks is not complete. It's again another large body of work, and a whole nother sort of order of magnitude of work to bring those into compliance. So we're identifying that as a future enhancement to this plan after we work through the first set of priorities. And then the last category has to do with the transit stops. Those are operated by Ben Franklin Transit, and the city is in a partnering relationship with the Ben Franklin Transit over both the placement and then the facilities that are built at those stops. So we get input from Ben Franklin Transit about their requested stop locations, and then as issues are brought forward about their accessibility, we would work with a requester and Ben Franklin Transit to bring those into up to snuff. So I have a couple pictures here that just illustrate here what we're looking at here is a ramp that is not compliant, and it's not compliant for a number of reasons. In general, the reasons for noncompliance are the slopes of surfaces that make them difficult to traverse, and the presence of what's called a tactile warning surface for the visually impaired that helps them navigate them. And so I won't go through the detailed reasons why this particular ramp doesn't conform, but it would be in those categories. Made a mistake in my slide action. There we go. We'll go back. And then what you're looking at with the second image added to that slide was one style of compliant crossing where the slopes are gentle enough to navigate, the tactile warning surface is there, and there's adequate staging space for that crossing to allow a user to correctly approach and use it. This slide demonstrates the different styles of push buttons, and the one on the left is not compliant because it doesn't have this correct the feel, and it's also not equipped with audible features. And so those are the style that are generally being phased out by our project, and the two other images reflect the style that we're putting into place with this current funded project. There are also standards about the distance that those push buttons are located from the crossing location. And so that the picture on the right shows a supplementary pole at a location that's needed to put that push button in an accessible spot. And here the graphic shows of what we're not aiming for and then what we're aiming for. Into the category, so those two categories were the sidewalk access ramps and the pedestrian push buttons at traffic signals. Again, those are components of the plan that we have a positive inventory and a work plan for. This category of obstructions in sidewalks is one that we don't yet have a full inventory on, and that we would take public input for specific requests. But here's just a terrible example of a large pole obstructing the usable surface of a sidewalk and making it inaccessible for certain people. So what's the city doing to address these challenges? First of all, we've adopted standards and guidelines for all new construction and remedial construction that conforms with the published federal standards. And so we're hoping not to create any new barriers with everything new that's being built. The second thing we're doing is that in all of our capital work that affects streets, we are remediating the facilities, both the traffic signals and those intersection or corner and pedestrian crossing access ramps to make them accessible. Over and above those general street improvement projects, we have a specific funded program from a federal funding source called the Community Development Block Grant. And each year we assemble a scope of work to deploy those funds and make only accessibility improvements. And so those are targeted based on priorities within the plan and the application of that funding source to specific populations and specific demographics. And then the last way sort of circles back to the top of the slide. We apply compliance standards to new construction, even that construction that's built as part of new neighborhood or new development work, to make sure that we aren't building in more problems. So the pathway from here is we have a draft plan that the plan is complete. It's published on the city's website. We're hoping that you engage with that plan and read it thoroughly and then provide us some comments. We've opened a public comment period starting this evening, and and continuing through the end of the month. We have this virtual open house. Starting tomorrow, all this content and more will be on the city's website for you to engage this topic. We have an online survey. We have multiple pathways for taking your comments. We have an online survey. We have an email address. We have our phone number. We have our phone contact in our office. And in addition, we've done some research and attempted to reach out to specific organizations and demographics within the city who can provide, we think would have unique insight into this issue. So we're hoping to get a robust set of input from the public. After all that's done, so likely in the month of December, the city has a standing committee that advises the city council about ADA issues. And we'll take all the public comment we get and this draft plan to them and ask them to make recommendations about the final form of the plan as it's presented to the city council, which we hope to occur in the first quarter of 2022. One of the features of the plan is to estimate or include a schedule that estimates when we can get this done. And you'll see on this slide that we think we can get these intersection curb ramps done in the next 15 years. It sounds like a long time, and it's because it's a big effort. So here's how you can engage us with comments and questions. During the comment period, there's a website link on there to complete our survey. Carlo has offered up his personal work email address to take your comments and questions. And so you'll note that on this slide. You can call Sabrina at that phone number 942-7500 and she'll take your thoughts, or you can send a snail mail at the address listed on that slide there. So that concludes the presentation. Hope you got enough out of it to engage us with your thoughts on this plan, and we look forward to your feedback. Have a good evening.